Now, Iran nuclear talks resume in Geneva on Monday. It's the 8th round of meetings, and the Biden administration is participating indirectly. The EU has been acting as a coordinator for the talks, and it hasn't gone well in previous rounds. Well, Behnam Taleblu is a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies, where he focuses on Iranian security and political issues. Thank you very much for coming on the programme.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, another round of talks. Are we optimistic or pessimistic going into these?
Well, in many ways, it's a new year, but the same old problem. There's really the question of, is this Iranian stubbornness something initial? Is it an opening line? Is this a negotiating position? Or is this a very sincere approach to an entirely new Iranian take to the nuclear problem? And if past is prologue, if these recent rounds that began in November and moved over into December and were suspended twice in Vienna is really going to provide any kind of backdrop, it seems to be no. And in fact, that the Iranians are more comfortable saying no, they're more comfortable with escalation, and they may be more comfortable engaging in yet another contest of sanctions for centrifuges.
Interesting. And what do you think are the potential stumbling blocks there, or at least things that could be hurdled over?
Oh, well, as you know, there are many. There's, of course, the existing sanctions regime that the U.S. has, and some of the sanctions leakage due to the lack of enforcement, due to the engagement that's been ongoing for quite some time now. There's, of course, Iran's own internal domestic politics, which is surely moving hard and quickly to the right. That may manifest itself. And there's, of course, many anniversaries. The anniversary of the killing of Qasem Soleimani, the former commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Quds Force. Routinely, Iranian officials say that they have not completed exacting revenge against America for that. So there is lots of potential for this to spiral out of control, both at the nuclear negotiating table in Vienna, as well as in the region, as well as internally within Iran.
Wow, that's pretty pessimistic overall, I would say. So where do you see this, if you don't see any conclusion from these talks specifically, where do you see this heading in 2022?
Well, I don't want to be accused of being a pessimist, but I'd like to say realistic, given that the Iranians have often, backed up much of their rhetoric with actual capabilities. And again, this newfound confidence, this embrace, tells us that if Iran continues along this way, you're likely to see a continued revolution in their precision strike capabilities, a lower threshold for the use of force, perhaps more cruise missiles, more ballistic missiles, and more drones employed by their proxies and partners in the region. And if the talks actually formally do collapse in the Biden administration and Washington embraces what has popularly been called a Plan B, then the U.S. may return to enforcing those existing sanctions and, in fact, perhaps look to pile on more sanctions and perhaps multilateralize a coalition for economic and diplomatic pressure against Iran. But I think if that is the case, then 2022 is going to be off to a very bumpy start.
Okay, Behnam Taleblu, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.